Hey everybody, Chris Americos here and welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about the best and the basic online teaching equipment that you need if you're going to succeed in the world of online teaching. Now, there are a lot of companies out there that give you jobs and have different requirements about the equipment that you have to have. But if you're teaching on your own, and as we've seen in the last year, you can make millions just teaching on your own or setting up your own teaching business online. And if you're teaching on your own and doing it independently, you have a lot of freedom. So you might be wondering, which equipment do I absolutely need and which equipment is just nice to have? We're going to look at all of that and more in this video. Working online and teaching from home can be really flexible. I mean, you get to choose your hours, you get to choose your students. There's a lot of freedom. But something that's really nerve-wracking for a lot of new teachers online is finding the right equipment. And one of the types of equipment that we have to start with, which I'd say is the main piece of equipment that we should begin with, is the device that you use to teach. Now, most of the world is transitioning away from web traffic or desktop, laptop, those things, and they're moving to mobile traffic. This is evidenced by lots of research that's been done over the past years, and we can see this trend continue to grow. However, most teachers teach from a desktop computer or a laptop computer. Why? It's just easier to use the different functions and different programs, for example, Zoom or Google Meets or Google Classroom or lots of other options that are out there. Sometimes those controls aren't so easy to use in the mobile version, and most teachers prefer to teach from a computer. That being said, there are a lot of teachers who are now coming online and using mobile-first platforms and mobile devices to present their lessons. You know what? I'm even recording this video on a phone. So that just tells you how far mobile has come. And sometimes mobile devices actually have better cameras than desktop devices or laptops. That's why I'm using the phone. So it can really be, there can really be a lot of pluses and minuses, and we don't have to only consider one kind of device. If you are more comfortable teaching from the phone, then maybe you should use a phone camera and then use the different functions and buttons for that program on your computer at the same time. Why not use both, right? So you have to find what you're comfortable with. But let's take a look at some of our options when it comes to desktop, laptop, and mobile. The devices that I recommend are the brand new 2021 iMac computer. I've just ordered mine, and it's going to be a game changer because it's a big upgrade from the last device that I bought, which was about 10 years before that. So that tells you how long I've been able to use it. And the device that I have still works. In fact, I'm recording from that device right now, and it just doesn't look so great. It's been through 10 years of wear and tear. So I'm really just doing a cosmetic upgrade here. And the next device is the MacBook Pro. The MacBook Pro is a great laptop. I have one, and whenever I need to take my work away from my office, I take this, and when I go on trips, when I travel, I'm able to easily pack up all my work and do it from here. It has a really good camera and a really good microphone, so even if you don't use another external webcam, you'll probably be able to use this device and do everything that you need to do. The next device is the iPhone 12 Pro. This is the one that I'm using, and in the segments of this video where you see my face, I was actually filming on this device. And it's really interesting because I've actually decided to switch over to using this device completely for filming, and I don't use my DSLR camera at all. It just takes longer to set up, and there are too many special features and special modifiers where, sure, for a professional in professional settings, it might be really important to have that, but for my purposes, I just need to get content out, and I just need to get results. So this lets me get a great quality in a short amount of time. And if you're gonna film from your phone, then you probably want to get a device like this that connects to a stand. You'll want to find some kind of microphone and camera stands and the stands and the connectors, they can be tricky, so you want to pay attention to that when you're buying these different combinations. All right, after choosing the right device, the next big question that most teachers have is, which microphone should I use? Which camera should I use? Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I use a very simple, very standard webcam, and I think it's great. It gives me high enough quality for all of my lessons that are happening online, and it also is compatible with all of the different programs that I use. When I go live on Facebook or YouTube, it can connect there, and when I use different streaming platforms, it can connect there. So everything's good, everything's gravy with my webcam on my computer. But when I'm traveling, I also want to take that webcam and just be able to plug it into the USB port in my laptop, which can be a problem if your laptop doesn't have a USB port. You might be thinking, which laptop doesn't have a USB port in this day and age, right? It's a really good laptop that doesn't have it. It's a MacBook Pro that doesn't have it. You know, as they continue to update their machines, they include different types of ports, and so the users have to adjust to this. This is something to think about when you buy your device. You need to be thinking long term, because a device is relatively expensive and you only want to have to buy it every 5-10 years if you absolutely have to, right? The longer that you can keep it and keep using it, the better. In fact, I only decided to replace my desktop Mac computer after 10 years of using it. It's even got a cracked screen with tape all over it to hold the glass in. And I just kept using it and using it for years in this condition because I didn't really need another one to get the job done, right? However, when you start to notice that some things are slowing down and you need to move to a new device, it doesn't mean that you also will have your camera and microphone issues figured out. And that's what a lot of teachers find, and then they panic in that situation. So you need to think ahead and plan what you're going to do separately from your device for your camera and for your microphone. Now, in the beginning of my career, I just used a simple iPhone, Apple headset, like just the earphones that go in your ears, and then there was a little microphone connected to it, and that's what I used. In fact, I recorded courses with that microphone and generated over $1 million with products recorded just with that microphone. So you can absolutely do it the simple way, the easy way, the basic way, like I've done it. But at some point you're going to say, hey, I need to step my game up. I need to get a better microphone. And that's when I decided to go out and buy the Blue Yeti. So even though I've told you about this already, the Blue Yeti microphone is really the only one that I would suggest. I've had a great experience with the Blue Yeti, and I know a lot of other people have too. It's great because it plugs right into the USB, but if you want to change it and use it as a regular microphone and plug it in there, then you can do it that way too. It works with arms that might connect to your desk to hold your microphone in place. It also comes in a nifty little stand that you see on the picture here. And so all in all, it's a really good microphone. It's pretty portable. It is quite heavy compared to some other microphones. But the fact that it just sits right on the desk and it goes right into your USB port, I mean, this is a really convenient microphone. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to look at the highest quality plus highest convenience, because it's not always convenient to go out and spend a lot of time setting things up. If you can save time and only sacrifice a small amount of quality, then it might be better to do it that way. So that's what we're talking about here. And you might see a microphone arm like this in someone else's videos. There's a lot of different ways that you can position the microphone, and but I don't think you need this in the beginning. However, if you decide to go with a different type of microphone, like a unidirectional microphone or a performance microphone, one that someone might use when they're at a live concert or something like that, then this might be better for you because you'll be able to adjust it and position it where you want it. The Blue Yeti, because it has the stand that goes right on the desk, you don't really have to do it this way. But that might be your shot, right? It kind of looks cool to have a microphone or a light just hanging there from this arm, and you can just turn it and adjust it on the desk as you need it. So that's something for you to consider. Now let's also look at the options that we need to consider for webcams, because we need to be thinking about both audio and video when we're going to be producing content. And that's really what we're doing when we're teaching live. Just think of every live lesson that you do as a recording. Just imagine that it's being recorded, and you'll perform a lot better, and you'll make sure that you have the right equipment. So let's take a look at webcams. There's really only one webcam that I would recommend, and it's the Logitech C920. This is probably the standard webcam that most people are using out there. It's pretty cheap, and you get a big bang for your buck. So that's why I would highly suggest this. Now, it depends on the device that you're using, right? So I would use this on a desktop computer, and you can also take it, because it's so small and portable, and connect it to your laptop computer too. So it's great to use between devices. Okay, there's another area that we sometimes forget about as teachers, and most people forget about this. They think about all the equipment that they need, but they forget about their internet connection. You need to make sure you have a strong internet connection. Get the best internet connection that you possibly can, because at the end of the day, a bad internet connection is going to lose you business. When you're in the business, in the industry of communicating with people and helping people communicate more clearly and better, well, it's important that you have the tools that will be able to send that communication to the other person. If there's a big lag, it takes forever for you to say what you need to say and for them to get that message, then it's going to slow down your whole process. The whole lesson isn't going to work right, and it's just going to feel uncomfortable for everybody involved. So that's why you really want to make sure that you have a great internet connection. And I know that in some countries, it's unavoidable. There are just bad internet connections all around. So you can actually find some tools to help you get around that. Like if you're teaching in South Africa, you probably have had to deal with load shedding before. So you need to buy devices that will allow you to get around this issue. In other places, there are other internet connectivity issues that we need to face. Sometimes it's being in a remote location, and we can get some kind of extender, or we can get a device that attaches to our phone or connects to our phone signal and extends it so that we can connect from a computer. Okay, a few other things that we need to consider when we're talking about the equipment that we need. And most people just think of microphone and camera when they think about equipment, but also we need to remember lights. You can see a red light over here. You can see the usual white light over here. Maybe you can even notice that I have two lights over there. And I'm using a variety of different lights. Over the years, I've collected different types of lights, and now I have a good arsenal of lighting equipment. But I like to try to use it in different ways in each different video with different content. And you'll see the variations throughout my videos, that you can see the ones where lighting hasn't been a focus, and you can see the ones where there have been some thought put into lighting. And that's what your students see too. So you want to make sure that you're in a well-lit place. And if you don't have a well-lit place, or if you notice that there's a big shadow on part of your face, if you notice that people can't see you clearly, right? Like if I'm wearing a hat, then usually there's a shadow over the face, but there isn't, because I've positioned the lights to make sure that we've taken out most of that shadow. So you can see that this side of my face is a little darker. We have a darker color over here, and this side is lighter with a lighter color. There are some things like this that you want to pay attention to. You want to always look at yourself in the camera before you start teaching online. So one type of light that I use is called a soft box, and I'll show you some images and put all the links to all these things down below the video. So a soft box is basically a light that's covered up, and it doesn't have to emit such strong light or direct light. It's diffused a little bit. It's really good for filling in the sides. There's also like an umbrella light. It basically is a light bulb with an umbrella over top of it. And this umbrella can be different colors to tint the light, but usually it's white. And it's also good at filling in extra spaces. I'm also using a ring light. And if you don't have any other lights, I suggest getting a ring light first. You can basically put the ring light right behind your phone or camera, and it's gonna fill up that face spot, like this shot right here, right? Where it's showing your face. You'll also see that sometimes you get these nice little reflections in the eyes. You've probably seen it in some other YouTube videos where there's like a circle in the eye. This is from the ring light. So find a good ring light. Most of these lights are really cheap. I think that a good ring light you can definitely get for under $100. I'll put some links to some good ones that I've purchased before under this video. And then a set of soft boxes and umbrella lights, you can get that for under $100 too. You'd be surprised at how cheap this stuff can be. And you don't need anything crazy. You don't need anything amazing just to get the job done. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those options right now. There's a lot of different ways to light something. I've already told you about soft boxes, and I've told you about the umbrella light, and I'll put links to those things down below this video, so you'll be able to click and go over and find all the examples of all of the equipment that I use. But here's some more interesting examples of lights that you might not have thought of so far. So this is what's called a colored LED light. You can actually change the color, and you can change the pattern that the light moves in. You can change the strength of the light also. So this is actually in the shots where you see my face, I have this set to red, and it's aimed against the wall, and that gives that nice background filler light. So this is one option. Another option is LED lights that just stick to the wall or stick to an object. So you might see this in some videos from YouTubers where they might have light beaming from their computer or from under their desk or from behind their TV. This is just sticky LED lights. And usually it comes with a remote, and you can change the color, you can set it how you want. I got some of these and used them in one of the rooms in my house. I really like the results, so I recommend these, and I think that it really gives an interesting look to any shot. Another thing that a lot of people pass up when they think about lighting is reflectors. And you don't have to have lots of lights to get the right light. You could have one light and then reflect that light somewhere else. And this is really good for lighting up faces and for balancing out the light, because you can probably see in some of my shots that the light is real sharp against my face, whereas if it were a reflected light, then it would be a little softer. So this is something to consider when you're doing lighting. And another big part to consider when you're doing lighting is that lots of lights means you need lots of power. So I use this adapter, and this allows me to have lots and lots of things connected in one place, and not only the standard plugs in the US, but also USB plugs. So this has been really handy, and I definitely recommend this. Another cool lighting tip is to use something that you might see outdoors or something that you might see in a different situation and use it as a prop. So a light itself can be a prop. You might see this in some different videos online where a person has a colored LED light or hipster lights. This is what I like to call these, lights on a string of lights. And you can see that they have them visible in the back of the shot, and the light is turned on. So it's not that that light behind you makes it look bad. It's actually a good thing, and it gives another layer to the video. So that's a really good tactic that I would recommend, putting a light as a prop in your background. Now, we also have to consider our workspace, the work environment, right? The desk that we're working at and the things that are behind us. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a brand new online teacher go online, start teaching a lesson, and then everybody's like, hey teacher, I can see your underwear in the background, or I can see somebody walking in their swimsuit behind you, or the point of the story is you need to check your background. You need to check what's around you, not just when you're working so that you have a clear mind, but also so that your students don't see anything embarrassing or inappropriate. One time I was doing an interview with someone and they had a bottle of alcohol on the table. That's not something that you want to be in your video probably. So take care of your workspace, look around, and make sure that it's something that you would want to show people and it doesn't look too messy. I recently bought a corner desk for one of the rooms in my house, and I think it turned out really well because it gives you a lot of space. So there's a lot of places for you to just set your things, and I've noticed more recently in my career that more and more things pile up on my desk. So I used to have a really cool, really flexible desk. I could just have different programmed settings, press a button, and it would go high or low automatically without me touching it. It also had USB ports in it, and I still have that desk and I really like it, but it was a little small. So the desktop is something that you should really think about. How big should that desktop be so it can hold all the stuff that you want it to hold? And so I went out and I bought another desk, and I made sure that the desktop was as big as I could get it. And really, it's a desk big enough for 2 workspaces. So if someone comes and works together with me on a project at the same time, or if I want to have multiple screens on my desk, then this desktop is a lot better. Now, another thing that I put into my workspace is shelves. And these shelves are just really easy, small squares. And you can get this from IKEA or you can get it online. I'll have a link below. But there's a lot of different options and they all look pretty much the same. You can just build them and put them together and keep stuff organized there. You don't have to spend lots of money on different bookshelves because you can get these simple shelves and everything still looks fine. Now, one of my favorite things that I've added is a mini fridge. I've added a mini fridge in my office, and that's really just to keep some drinks like water, kombucha, maybe sometimes a juice or something like that, maybe a small snack. On this picture, you can see that their fridge is full of beer, so that's not in my fridge, but it's really nice to have that, and you don't have to go all the way to another room. It doesn't have to break your focus. If it's still in your workspace, and you can have a little snack, you can have a drink, and not have to leave your workspace. So it's not that you had to transition out of what you were doing. You're still in that work mode. Another thing to think about in your workspace is how are you organizing all of your files, your documents, all of the papers that you need. And probably you want to sort them by date, or at least by year, right? You want to sort them by either month or by year, and you can keep them in a filing cabinet. So this is the filing cabinet that I recently purchased. Real simple, comes with a key, it locks, so it's nice and secure, but also simple and small. And then another thing that someone put me onto recently was these cord hiding units. So basically you just tuck all the cords in there and you use the cords only the length that you'll need them, and you try to position this thing so that it hides the mess of all of the cords. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. On your floor, around your desk, there's probably a mess of cords everywhere. And this just makes it look a lot nicer, especially if that section of your workspace is going to be in a filmed area, right? If you're going to film yourself, or if you're going to be presenting something, giving lessons online, and that area is going to be visible, why not hide those cords? And another thing to think about is a chair. Now, when you're getting a chair for your workspace, comfort is really, really important. You want to test it out. You want to make sure it has the right support for your back. But also, the chair can be a nice prop. So if you're making a video or if you're teaching, it can be something that complements the background, complements how you've presented yourself, and it could look really, really professional too. Now, in addition to making sure that your workplace and your background are not messy and they're organized, you also want to think about some creative way to use other objects behind you. And that's really what this light is for. This red light that I've put on the side here, it's just to separate the wall from me. So you can see that there's another layer there. And it shows you that I stick out a little bit from the wall, so I don't just sink into the wall here, right? But another option is just to have lots of little random things that represent what you're all about. Now, if I turn the camera over here a little bit, you'll see I've got this light here in the way, but behind this light, we can see all of these different things. A bookshelf, I've got my drone down there, I've got some awards that some platforms have sent me, and a lot of different things like this. So it really doesn't have to be anything spectacular. It's just filler, but it takes up that empty space. Like you'll notice that when you're watching me right now, when you're watching me here, when I'm against this wall, it's just empty and blank. And so your eye is drawn more towards the light. Your eye is drawn more towards just small movements that I might make. It's not that interesting for a viewer. They've seen a person talk in front of a camera before, right? But if we turn it over here, well, now there's lots of stuff going on over here. You might be looking at some of the small details and asking yourself, well, what is that thing, right? So that's what we can do with a background. And if you can tie that into your lesson, or you can tie that into whatever it is that you're teaching, then that can be even better, because students will say, oh, wow, that teacher was able to incorporate something of themselves or one of these small objects, and I can relate to that. I can see their personality sitting there on a shelf. So that's a really cool thing for you to think about. When we're talking about extra things that are going to go the extra mile and really show people how you're different and help you stand out, then adding in some plants is a really cool idea. I'm a big fan of green in the workspace. I think that it adds life. It makes you feel better, especially if you're in front of the computer all day or in a dark room. Just having something green to look at or to touch, it can really help your psychological state. That's how I feel. Another thing that I like to do is find abstract paintings, pictures, images, and then put them on my walls around where I work. And when I look at them, it makes me think deeper about things. So this is one of the examples that I have in my workspace right now. And here's another one. This is one of my favorites. And so both of those just kind of, when you look at them, you can examine them. There's a lot of things going on. And I feel like I can always find something new there. And then another really cool thing that I've added recently is something called boxwood panels. It's just squares of shrub-looking green something, right? It looks like some kind of vine, or so it's a plant that you can put inside. It's not a real plant, of course. In fact, it smells like plastic, but it looks really, really good. And I think that it makes me feel comforted because, again, I love seeing green in the workspace, and it just changes the whole vibe of the room. Okay, we've covered most of the basics. We've covered most of the equipment that you would probably need if you're going to get started today teaching online. And one last thing, one last piece of equipment that I see a lot of people forget is the whiteboard. Now, I've gotten a huge whiteboard over here. So I have one that just moves around the room, and you can basically just, it's on wheels, so you can push it to different places in the room. But, you know, I've also got whiteboards that just hang up on the wall. I have found that using a whiteboard in the shot is really, really good because you're a teacher and sometimes you need to explain something, and it's great to be able to just whip out a marker and say, oh, good question, let's talk about that, right? It really doesn't matter what niche you're in. If you're a coach, consultant, expert, teacher, whatever you call yourself, having a whiteboard is helpful, it's useful, and it doesn't hurt the eye in the video, right? You can always go over there and write on it. Now, something to be careful of when you're shooting a whiteboard on your shot, like if the whiteboard is right behind you in the background, then you want to be careful not to have too much reflection of the light. It can be really hard to film this white surface because it reflects everything. So you have to put the lights in a special position so that they're not being reflected, but they're still lighting up the scene. Now, you might be thinking, Chris, this is great, but it doesn't really apply to me because I work for somebody else. Well, it's not true, because you're making an impression on your students, and you're making an impression on the employer. You're making an impression on all the people that you work with when you go live, when you teach a lesson, whether it's recorded or live, if you make content. When you do these things and you put yourself out there, you're representing who you are and how professional you are, how serious you take your job. And if you want this to turn into something that you can live off of and live comfortably off of, then you really need to think about that. You really need to think about using the equipment that you have. And again, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be complicated. Using the equipment that you have to send the right message. So if you've learned anything from me in this video at all, I hope that that's what you've learned, that setting up your equipment is more about sending the right message than anything else. There isn't a one-size-fits-all answer. I can't just tell you which one is the best for you or which equipment you should buy. I'll put all the links that I can under this video so that you can go check them out. But in the end, go with something that's relatively cheap so that you can test out your own skills and how important this becomes to you. When I started out, I thought that lighting was everything. I thought equipment was everything. I thought sound and video were everything. And I ended up spending a lot of time just focusing on those things instead of making progress and moving forward, instead of getting clients and sales, and instead of actually making a living from my teaching. I was stuck trying to focus on the equipment and make that better. Don't get stuck like I did. And if you want to hear more about my story, how I went from zero and I was sleeping on somebody else's couch and eating an apple for meals, really, that's my real story, all the way from there to where now I'm making over $1 million a year for my business teaching online, then go ahead and click the link under this video, go over to my free 7-day training, and you'll hear about my story in the beginning, and then you'll learn how you can do it yourself. So thanks a lot for watching this video, and I hope to see you again very soon. If you liked it, press like, press subscribe, and leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.